preference deal that's been done, if the coalition does form government, will she have a seat at your cabinet table?
Of course not. And we've said right at the start that if you want to change government, you want to get our country back on track, then vote for your Liberal or National Party candidate. I wouldn't be mucking around with independents and third parties at this election. I really wouldn't. We don't want to see a European situation where you've got a handful of Greens and left-leaning Teal candidates who are holding the government to ransom. That is not going to be good for us. There could be a global recession, there could be conflict across the world somewhere. We need a strong government and a competent government. We need a Prime Minister capable of making the decisions in our country's best interests. And the best way to do that is to change government, to get rid of this bad government, and to support the Liberal and National candidates at this election. If you do that, there's immediate relief. The 25 cents a litre off fuel, $1,200 back by way of tax rebate. That's money you've worked for. We're going to cut the ute tax, which adds about $14,000 to a Ford Ranger. We're going to make sure that home ownership is a reality again for young Australians. And we're going to keep our communities and our country safe as well.
Does the coalition share values with One Nation?
Yes, mate.
Mr Dutton, you mentioned the comments from Senator Wong earlier. Yeah. Would you confirm to oppose any attempt to legislate a voice in the future or anything similar to it? Could I also just ask you about Josh Frydenberg, who said overnight, never say never for a return to politics? Would he be a welcome addition to your team?
I hope Josh does come back one day, and I've encouraged him to do so. Obviously, he's not running at this election, so it's a debate for 3 years down the track. But look, I think we've got a lot at stake at this election, and I think Australians have a choice before them, and I think there is a very obvious choice about whether you want 3 more years of the same with rising costs or whether you elect a coalition government. If you do that, petrol prices come down by 25 cents a litre, $1,200 tax rebate, and you provide the opportunity to young people again to own a home. I think that's what this is about.
Just on that voice issue, would you oppose any attempt to legislate?
Look, we've been clear in relation to the voice that we don't support the voice. I think the Prime Minister should have heard the voice of the Australian public when they voted no in the referendum. Clearly they haven't. Now, it would be one of the first items of business for a Labor Greens government to introduce legislation, to put in place the voice and treaty and truth-telling, etc. This is why the Prime Minister tied himself in knots in relation to this issue the other night in the debate. It's obvious that the Prime Minister shares the view of Penny Wong. He just is not as honest as Penny Wong. And Australians should know that if you vote for Anthony Albanese, he hasn't listened the first time around in relation to your decision on the voice referendum. Send him a message at this election that no, we're not going to support the voice legislated by Labor and the Greens and treaty and truth-telling, because we expressed our view very clearly. I think that's like Australians would be scratching their heads saying, I thought the Prime Minister had heard that we said no. And now it turns out Labor's thinking about legislating it, and it would be first order of business, as I say, between a Labor-Greens government. So Australians should send the Prime Minister a message that they don't want the voice in any form, and the Prime Minister needs to start being honest with the Australian public about Labor's secret plan in relation to the voice.
Mr Duncan, can I follow Sarah's earlier question? On the first day of the campaign in your electorate at a morning tea, you said to a large crowd, if there's a position where we need to negotiate with the independents, we can do that to form minority government. You've spoken a lot about minority government for Labor. You haven't spoken a lot about what you would do in a minority government situation. Would you rule out making a deal with Pauline Hanson's One Nation or the Trumpet of Patriots Party?
Look, the only independents who are in prospect in the lower house are those that are already there, or some in Teal seats or Green seats.
What about in the upper house?
But there's nothing in the lower house to form government, was your question. So there's no negotiation in relation to that at all.
Mr Dutton, during the Voice referendum campaign, you told Australians if they don't know, vote no. Given voters still don't know a lot of the details about how you get immigration down, how you will get public servant numbers down, why should they not follow your advice and vote against the coalition?
Well, you raised the voice, and you're right. If people said no last time around, say no this time around to Labor. I think it's a good point. I think say no to Labor because they didn't hear you the first time. And people voted against the voice. The Prime Minister promised that he'd give the detail on the voice, never had any intention of doing it.
Labor's given their
And
costings already.
what we know is that the government, as Penny Wong has been at least honest enough before the election to talk about, as Jim Chalmers has in relation to taxes, we don't want an unrealised capital gains tax in this country. That means if your shares go up in value or your property goes up in value, you're paying tax on that gain before you sell the shares or you sell the property.
Why didn't you
It's
detail your
actually,
immigration tax?
it's actually like saying to somebody who's a wage earner, we want you to pay your tax before you get paid your wage. And that's unfair, and I think a lot of Australians
the
are hearing
details
that
to your own
message.
policies,
Yes,
though?
mate, yeah.
Labor lifted the household income limit for the childcare subsidy to $530,000 from $350,000, and they also raised the subsidy rate. Would a Dutton government repeal those changes?
No, we've got the same position and support. I'm a very strong supporter of making sure that, that families and mothers in particular have choice in relation to whether they want to find formal care in long day care or in home care arrangements with family daycare, etc., or informal arrangements with neighbours or grandmothers or grandfathers, whatever it might be. I'm a very strong supporter in providing that choice, and we've been clear about that.
Mr Dutton, how many seats here in Victoria do you need to win on Saturday to constitute success? And a few weeks ago you said you'd release details of $1.6 billion in infrastructure funding for the state before the election. When can voters expect that information?
Well, we're going to release our costings, as Angus and Joan have pointed out earlier today. We need to win Dunkley, absolutely. And in Nathan, we have an exceptional candidate, somebody who's worked hard as a local mayor, somebody who has supported many of these local causes and businesses. It's amazing. And there are a number of other seats, obviously, that we're targeting
So how many?
in Victoria, and we'll continue to work day and night between now and the election. This is a crucial election for our country, and it's a crucial election for Victoria as well, because Victorians know how bad a long-term Labor government is, and a second-term Albanese government would resemble an Allan government, and that would be bad for the national economy, it would be bad for Victoria. We've been clear in relation to our priorities. It's not the suburban rail link. It is making sure that the airport link can be funded. Only a coalition government is providing that support. Labor's not providing that support. And we'll have further detail in relation to...
Mr Dunn.
Yes, mate.
Can I get your response to reports regarding the Hubei Association's offer to provide volunteer assistance to Claire O'Neill's campaign?
Yeah.
And can you provide a guarantee that the coalition has no members of the association assisting with your election efforts?
Well, in relation to Claire O'Neill, she's a former Home Affairs Minister, so she should be well and truly across the issues around foreign interference. Now, Monique Ryan realised she'd done the wrong thing and she referred that matter to the Electoral Commission task force. Claire O'Neill should do the same thing, and I'm not aware of any other instances. Yeah.
Are you confident that no volunteers for your Liberal candidates have links to the CCP United Workfront group? And also, sorry on that, we've just toured through here today. Charlotte's told you that they're desperate for funding. What is the commitment at this charity?
Well, firstly, in relation to the first question, excuse me, I don't have any knowledge in relation to that, and I mean, without speaking out of school, but generally, if there was a concern, then the Director General of ASIO may raise a concern if there's somebody that's of concern to them, but I'm not aware of any reports outside of that or from the organisation. So I think the focus is clearly on Claire O'Neill and Monique Ryan. Monique Ryan seems to have this selective memory loss where she can't remember some things, and transparency is important, but not on every day, and sometimes she doesn't think it's important, but mostly it might be. So it's a dog's breakfast in Monique Ryan's candidacy at the moment, and I think the people in Kooyong are going to see through that. So there are huge issues for Claire O'Neill to address, and she should refer her matter to the AEC.
And sorry, just on my second question, what is the commitment at this
Well,
charity?
we've provided $50 million, as we've said, to provide support to organisations to provide the sorts of services that we saw downstairs, particularly in relation to food. And I think there is more support that we can provide to a service like this. I just think the work is amazing, and we've committed $50 million so far. I'm sure there's an argument for more money, and I'd like to get a better understanding of how we can provide more support here, and I know Nathan advocates for that as well.
Mr Dutton, Donald Trump has said he's aware that Anthony Albanese has been trying to call him back soon. Are you hopeful that Labor might have secured a tariff carve-out?
Well, it's an amazing revelation, but refreshing to know that President Trump has a phone. So we're told by the Prime Minister he may not have a phone. I don't know why the Prime Minister can't just be honest. I mean, just say, look, I don't have his number. Why do you have to say that I don't think he owns a phone? It just seems strange, like falling off a stage and then pretending there's no footage of you falling off the stage. It sort of gets weirder and weirder by the day. Look, I want a functioning relationship between the US President and the Australian Prime Minister. It's in our country's best interests if that happens. Clearly it's not the case at the moment, but I want to make sure that we have the best relationships possible with all of our international partners, including the United States, particularly given that our most important security partner and obviously a big trade partner as well.
And is this a good sign,
Yes.
Mr Dunn?
Yep.
Mr Dunn, just on the seat of Kooyong, the Liberal Party is prepared to take a stoush with the Burundara Council to court just regarding complaints about signs that were removed by from the Liberal candidate because of complaints that it was blocking the footpath. Is this getting now petty with the sort of politics we're seeing there? And also in Kooyong, do you see yourself getting a warm reception if you are visited?
A couple of points. I mean, it's an issue when you've got one council where there's a problem and not the other councils in Greater Melbourne, for example. So that says to me that there's a problem with that council, which I think is a Labor Greens council, or certainly not our way. They just need to abide by the rule of law, and if they're not doing that, then obviously those matters will be dealt with through the courts. And Amelia Hamer's doing a fantastic job in Kooyong, and we'll get through as many seats in Victoria as we can. Obviously, we've been to a number of seats before, and we'll continue that because Victoria, I think, is ready for change, ready to change the government nationally. In Victoria, people are really feeling the impact economically of a bad Labor government here at a state level, and Anthony Albanese's government is no different to the Allen government. So 25 cents a litre cut to fuel here in Victoria, $1,200 tax rebate back to help you with the cost of living crisis. Home ownership is incredibly important here in Victoria. Only the Liberal Party will provide that support to young Australians, and we're going to make sure that we can keep our communities safe. I've heard the message from Victorians who are deeply concerned about home invasions, about robberies, about assaults, and we've spoken to a lot of those victims of crime as well. And it's only the Liberal Party who is acting. You've seen the Labor Party and the inaction at a state level and at a federal level. We're going to secure our borders. We're going to make sure that we crush the crime groups so that we can make your suburbs, your communities, your towns safer. And it's only a Dutton-led coalition government that can deliver that for the people of Victoria, as well as making sure that we can keep our country safe as well. Thank you very much.
What's on your tie?